Sound check, 1, 2, 3. We are back in session. Councilmember Balkum, you have the floor. Oh, thank you. Yes, I apologize. Yes, let me do. I do want to go to item 3 on the agenda. Apparently, it's necessary for us to review. Meetings of the McLendon-Chisholm McLendon-Chisholm City Council serves and represents the citizens that reside inside the city limits of McLendon-Chisholm. In accordance with Texas state law, and except when convening an executive session, all meetings of City Council are open to the public. However, unless the presiding officer, the mayor, decides or the council votes to suspend the rules, only council members may engage in the proceedings. Decorum dictates that those who are present be respectful of the opinions, statements, and actions of the council and other citizens who are present, especially when they may not agree with or take exception to the words or actions of others. Adhering to rules of decorum is less about showing respect to the council, but more about demonstrating respect for oneself and to all citizens of McLendon-Chisholm. As with any open meeting, all those present have the right to attend, but no one has the right to disrupt the proceedings. The presiding officer will make every effort to respectfully address anyone who violates decorum should they move or speak out of order. Those who disregard the admonition of the presiding officer to comply with decorum may be asked to leave the proceedings in accordance with Texas state law regarding open meetings by a governing body. Should an individual refuse to leave, the presiding officer may recess the meeting and reconvene after either the individual leaves or is removed by law enforcement. The acoustics in the meeting chamber magnifies sound and noise. This is most noticeable when observers who are present comment to one another during session, which is both distracting to others and stifles the quality of the audio that is being recorded and or broadcast. Therefore, whenever the council is in session, attendees should refrain from extraneous verbal remarks or exchanges inside the chamber, including at the rear of the room. Attendees who wish to converse during session should move their discussion outside of the chamber. With that, I hand the floor to Councilmember Balkum. Councilmember Balkum.
Okay. I want to thank you guys for doing y'all's homework too, and I'm still in the middle of doing research. I think it's kind of important to be familiar with your subject matter before you go into, such a this type of agreements and all that, and what's best for. I just think it's important for us to do the research and all that. So in doing so, there's just a couple of questions I just couldn't really get a handle on, which is like the issue with our the monies that's being requested, and each year how it has increased, and how we're supposed to be we're supposed to be good stewards. So those things are on my mind, So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, what are other cities doing? So I decided to take our membership with TML, which, if you look at breaking it down to the general law cities, there's 600 that are on there. Now, I don't want to make you guys believe that I went through all 600, because I didn't. But I started with a certain population, and I did learn something that we actually have about, it's the lowest population of a general law A city is 56, and the highest one is 17,544. And there's only one of those, but Anyway, so it's interesting how like they stayed general law A cities. And so anyway, and I'm sure that they have their reasoning. It could be because of population, or probably because they like how they're limited. They want to keep it limited government and things of that nature. So anyway, so I decided to do a collection of information, and there's some things that I collected on the spreadsheet, like what are these cities doing? Are they investing in their police department? Do they have fire departments? Do they have the combination? Do they got volunteers? These types of things. Do they have an ESD? I also looked into whether or not they have contract services, and I've kind of broke it down a little bit, like what these services would be providing. Like, for example, the police department, if they chose to do it, it's most likely city-owned. And the fire departments, there is a combination of city, volunteer, and mutual aid, or they do not have a fire department at all. So they also have there is some that have sheriffs, and that they rely on the county for those type of services if they don't choose to have a police department. Or they have there's options of a county-wide fire department, and that's provided within the county. So there is a small percentage of those, and then there's also ESDs that are out there, and obviously that's just another taxing entity. ESD, yes, Emergency Service District. Sorry, I have to remember say with the aneurysms. So, or they actually go in contract agreements with other nearby cities to get contractual agreements for fire protection services. So these are the common things that I've noticed in my research. And another thing that I was learning through all my research here is that how they are financed. So the city administration, you're not flipping. So you got it. Okay, sorry. The next one. It's okay. Okay, so the finances were interesting to me on how are they funding these types of departments or contract agreements and things of that nature. I think that was kind of an important thing. So city administration, they either hired a fire marshal, they either hired a fire chief and or staff. Or they had an ordinance that was detailed on how their fire department was to, how it was supposed to be conducted. And it's interesting because I didn't realize that you could actually go into detail about all of the things that is necessary for the fire department to do in this ordinance. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I'm going to show an example about that. Because I think that's important so you can see that there's other cities that are doing that. Also, I found that volunteer fire departments did bill the city and or insurance companies, so that is a common practice. And then also there's contracting services with volunteer fire departments that's not city-owned. And then there's also mutual aid contributions, and that could mean that they they invest into another city's equipment or staffing and things of that nature. Just depended on the city and their agreement with other cities. Or you have property taxes from ESDs. So, and on the other side is the contracted expenditures. You would see that it was salary plus benefits plus assets and expenses on a city-owned fire department. So these things are important to take note whenever I show you the spreadsheet. Or in the ordinance detail section that I mentioned a second ago, what that most of the time that's happening that I did my research on is that the department itself would actually send invoices to the city to remit payment. Okay. Now, whether it's within 30, 45 days, I do not know that. Also, what I noticed in the billing, whether it's a contract service or if it's mutual aid or it just contributions to other cities to help out, for fire services, I didn't see anything over $100,000. So it was either nothing or just around $100,000. So this is all general law. This is all the ones that I've researched right here. And again, I haven't got to all 600. You know, I'll try to achieve that, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. I just took a very small cluster, and also to note that some of the cities that are on here, you know, they are quite small, and or they don't really invest into their website, so sometimes you have to actually do like a open records request or pick up the phone and call them, because they just don't really have the high-tech stuff going on right now. So they do have the budgets, they just don't invest in those types of things, and that's okay. That's what they want to do. So again, the funding sources that are coming in for the fire departments, if it is city-owned or volunteer, they typically get monies from like the property taxes or even grants. And I actually saw one city that, one fire department was a volunteer fire department, and they received $140,000 in grant money. So there was one time, but I mean, so I was kind of like surprised. I didn't know that you get, because I've always seen like maybe like 2,000, 1,000, or even like about $5,000. So I was really surprised that was, I don't know. I just know that was listed in the budget. So anyway, so there's donations and ESDs, and they get that through taxes and things of that nature, and also county subsidies. And then also you got your police departments, and they typically get property taxes that comes out of your general fund expenses, or grants or donations and things of that nature. So, okay, so this is next one is the actual spreadsheet, and this is like the basic spreadsheet, because there's actually more notes to it. So Councilmember Scott Turner is going to have some fun with this, and looking at the numbers. You'll find it interesting for you. Okay, so I want you guys to take a look at, can you see it very well on your screens? I'm just trying to break it up real quick. Okay. So again, I haven't gone through all 600. This is a very small percentage of what I've gotten, and so if you notice that every heading, there's like either the things that they should have in common is the name of the city, the population, and by the way, I just want to make sure that everybody notes that I put in 2,633 and I put an asterisk, and the reason why I did that, and this goes for all of these cities, is the numbers are coming from the TML membership site, and it needs to be understood that it's an estimate, because we do census every 10 years, and these are not like it's like approximate or a number, so it's considered an estimate of their population. So we just want to make sure that that's stated. So we got our tax rate. Oh, and another thing, that some of these places don't have taxes. They don't take ad valorem. So I learned that too. So and they find other ways to get their monies and their budgets and things of that nature. So the CFD stands for City-Owned Fire Department, and then the next column stands for City-Owned Police Department, and then there's FD staff. Fire Department staff is in the next column, and then there's the contractor. For us, we have a contractor. Okay, we were the first row. We also have mutual aid, which is very common in most city agreements. Most cities do mutual aid. Then there's a column for fire budget, and that could mean that this is what they budgeted to go towards equipment or staffing, or it could be like expenses and things of that nature, but it's definitely on their city budgets that they have given to this particular entity or department. And then there's a police budget, and then I also included the size of the actual city itself, not the unincorporated area or the size of the county that they may serve. So, and then I went ahead and put their revenue. These are the current revenues for each of the cities at the time, and when I was doing my research. So anyway, so I wanted you guys to see, it aligns with what Councilmember Herron was talking about as far as like the percentages. I didn't make a colorful, pretty graph about what the percentages of fire departments versus police departments that are city-owned. But there is a consistent thing that I'm noticing is that there is more city-owned police departments, and if they did go into city-owned fire departments, there's a reason why, and it's because of the staffing. It's true that volunteer fire departments have trouble retaining volunteers, that they may want to make it into a career. And, I mean, I get it. So, anywho, and then also there's insurance and benefits and things of that nature. So, I also wanted you to note here is that the populations is kind of important, I would think, and noting like the types of revenues, and I think what was the percentage for us on our budget? We spent like wasn't it 20% of our budget? Or what was the percentage? 25%? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so, and again, I don't know what the percentages would be from these ratios. If you can think of it off the top of your head, I don't know what that would be. But to me, I'm having trouble with the amounts. And also you can note that most of these cities are, it's very rare that you see a lot of contracting services like this. So, and then the amount of money as well. Usually, if you can see on the where it says the fireman budget, if they don't have a city-owned fire department, I think we have like $80,000 is what they were spending. And again, this is only like a very, very small amount of research that I've done for general law cities out of 600. So I'm sure that we're doing more research, it would be a little bit more conclusive. So one of the things that I wanted to touch base on, if you want to go to the next page, basically this is a article that's going to be found in one of the ordinances. I chose Goliad. There's a lot of like things that they put in these ordinances, and then obviously they the next one. Right, yes. Where it says established. Okay, so in here they break it down, like they tell you when the thing is established as a fire department, city-owned fire department, and they talk about the officers, and they go in detail about, and I highlighted in red. I thought that was pretty significant because it's subject to approval by the city council as long as city equipment is to be used by the department and or work is performed by the volunteers within the city. So these are terms that can be used when we are going into agreements of expectations. And if you flip to the next page, this is part of one of the ordinances, and you can, read for yourself. I mean, noticing they're using city fire equipment, the main city pumper, and, mentioning being very specific on the assets, okay? And I liked how they highlighted this about the compensation of members. And they said, although the service in the fire department is voluntary, the city council may, from time to time, provide certain benefits to the volunteers in accordance with the guidelines as approved by the city council. So I thought that was kind of neat that they would put that in there, because that means that there could be things that come up, expenses. Like, what if a truck need to be repaired? There were like an engine blowout. I mean, how many times does an engine blow out of a car whenever it reaches after a certain mileage point? There needs to be some sort of expense account to be able to take care of those types of needs, I think. So I could see how that would be a good benefit to put that kind of stuff in these ordinances. So okay, so it started getting me thinking about the numbers and our expectations, because if we're going to do any type of contractual agreement and to to discuss that, or even other types of options. So the top thing I was thinking about is like our administration expectations, our assets, and I'm going to bring up our assets because, I've had some really uncomfortable conversations with citizens that, first off, I haven't been here that long, but most of them have, and so they would tell me stories about things that have happened in the past as far as like what they were fundraising, and there was like this confusion of who owns what, and I didn't have the right answers at that time because we are just now realizing that we don't have anything that's in our name, and I think that's important that from here on out, that if we're going to do any type of investments, we need to make sure if this is, that it needs to be titled in our name, and there needs to be an inventory listing this expectation, because if citizens don't know that this is not an asset, they have the right to know that. And it's a responsibility for us, I believe. So, and it's just, again, it's simple paperwork. Then another topic I was thinking about is like avoid funding burdens, and then what are our best options? You can go to the next one. This is to talk about the administration expectations. Yeah. So these are just some ideas that I was thinking about, and I didn't write a full-on, blown-on contract because I just didn't. These are just some ideas that I wanted to highlight, is that about financial statements, and I went ahead and just put MCVFD in there, so I said MCVFD hereby agrees to submit a copy of its financial statements prepared by an independent certified public accountant, or a copy of its not-for-profit tax return within 30 days upon completion. NCVFD and Rockwall County EMS shall work cooperatively to establish a uniform accounting system or recording all fire protection revenues and expenditures, not only those derived from annual contracts. MCVFD's books and records shall be subject to an independent certified audit by a certified public accountant selected by the City of McLendon-Chisholm and paid for by the city at such times as the accounting board shall determine appropriate. And excuse me, I said accounting board, and I meant the board that we recently made an ordinance for transparency purposes. Yes, audit review board, and so I misspoke on that part. So anyway, and also there's a thing with the box when they go out, it records where they're going, and I don't know what that term is, but the EMS uses it to go. It's like a clicker, or it tells you exactly the time that's run or something. Well, I know, but I'm saying that they're working with the Rockwall EMS. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's an automatic vehicle locator.
Okay, that. So I didn't know what that term was, so automatic, so I'll need to make a note of what that term is. So I thought that would be helpful as a device to kind of help in keeping up with that type of information. And I don't know how much that stuff is going to cost, but I think that would be a good, another item that we can add to our inventory list as an asset for them, So anyway, and then as far as like the actual contracting service, my suggestion was going to be MCVFD shall at all times during the period of this contract maintain and provide adequate and suitable support and management for the housing of apparatus, appliances, and equipment, hereafter referred to generally as equipment, meeting TCFP standards for the condition and capabilities of such housing of such equipment as those capabilities apply to the intended use, and that the housing for said equipment shall be maintained for year-round service, and permitting it to be prepared for and be subject to call for response to and attendance upon any fire or emergency occurring in the fire protection district when notified by alarm, telephone call, or any other means from any person within said district of a fire or emergency within the district. NCVFD shall provide such support and management for the housing of apparatus and it's suitable for the control of said fire emergency and the saving of life and property. Okay, and again with the continuing on with the administration expectations is the assets. Any equipment that is purchased shall be titled and listed as an asset to the City of McLendon-Chisholm, or that it is the property of City of McLendon-Chisholm. Inspections, MCVFD agrees that the city council, its employees, agents, volunteer committee servants, and assigns, whoever they assign, shall at a mutual agreed upon time have access to and all fire protection buildings, equipment, and tools for the purpose of inspection and evaluation. I was thinking about if we're gonna do the feasibility case study, we're gonna have a committee, a search committee, and we wanna make sure that, they have adequate, time as well as being able to, get the information they need to do their case study properly, so. Feasibility planning 2018, I'm just, putting out in the future that we're gonna move forward on this. The MCVFD shall meet as needed and at all times work cooperatively with the city volunteer boards to implement mutually agreed upon aspects of the approved McLendon-Chisholm Fire Protection Master Plan, which improves the operating effectiveness of providing fire protection and emergency services in the city and mutual aid agreements within Rockwall County. All parties will work cooperatively to continue to develop and finalize a joint financial plan for the development of a central fire station and to implement a procurement process which avoids to the maximum extent possible duplicate equipment purchases. Possible new assets to be purchased. The city shall allow the MCVFD to use certain firefighting equipment owned by the city, with the city retaining ownership of the equipment. The MCVFD may use the city firefighting equipment in any of the MCVFD's operations. The city-owned equipment may be used by the department when necessary in the operations of the department outside the corporate limits of the McLendon-Chisholm. Except in extreme situations, however, the MCVFD shall always have sufficient equipment available to protect lives and property within the corporate limits of the city. The MCVFD shall maintain the city-owned equipment in good repair, and the city shall bear the cost of insuring the equipment either directly or by reimbursement to the MCVFD at the discretion of the city. The MCVFD shall at all times keep the city informed as to the identity of all persons who may operate city-owned vehicles and to provide necessary information to satisfy inquiries or insurers. And I didn't know what the term was, so I just went ahead and put down that it's kind of like, being able to produce like a driver's license and if they have the appropriate class that they're allowed to drive the engines or be considered a driver for the engine. Then the ISO inspection, which the last one was done back in 2012, so we would, MCFD shall cooperate with the city in an effort to maintain the lowest possible fire insurance classification of the property within the corporate limits of the city, so request inspection in 2018. And so the next topic that I mentioned that I wanted to cover was the assets to acquire vehicles, not necessarily with this organization. Maybe we have another organization that just sells fire engines, or maybe it's a different city that we would go into a contractual agreement to say the city shall pay to the blank the sum of blank, such sum representing the accounts of the city dedicated for the benefit of fire protection services. This is a one-time payment only, and this paragraph does not in any way obligate the city to make any annual or additional payments to the blank in any amount unless otherwise agreed to by the city herein or in another written agreement. Oh, and I also need to bring up, because I made note about it, so 7 points. When I spoke to them, they actually, what that city did was they paid for the insurance on the fire department's vehicles, and they actually had a building prepared for where the apparatus is and all that, and then the firemen, the volunteers, because it's just volunteers. They don't pay them. There's no salaries, there's no benefits at all. So the VFD literally just uses their station to operate in. So that's what the city does, is they just pay for the insurance and all that. Okay, so the avoid funding burdens is like, what is our business? And Councilmember Herron brought up a good point, because it's really not our responsibility when it comes to like other businesses and how they run it and all that. But and telling them how things are done, all that kind of stuff. But then it is our business when it comes to the protection of citizens, and then there's also our assets, and there is responsibilities that we need to be stewarding, and that we need to be asking questions and holding people accountable and things of that nature, even if it is administration. okay? And it was us that actually looked at the contracts. You know, the county, the contract needed to be separated years ago. And it took us to actually read the contract. You know, all I know is that as I'm like unpeeling all of this stuff, it's like I'm learning more and more and more.
Adrian, are you suggesting, and I just, for clarification's sake, you think that, because Councilman Herron, you seem to have alluded to it as well, and I'm fine with it, I just need to know, are you thinking the county needs to keep funding the fire department directly for the unincorporated areas? Is that what you're recommending?
Absolutely. I think that, and just like us, they can have business with them all day long, okay? It's in the law, they can do that.
Yeah.
And we already talked with Commissioner Bailey about
Right.
it, and they have options too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have no issue with that, and I think it's great. It's great that that we have finally separated that.
Okay.
So
It's good to know.
I
Thank
think
you.
that we need to be concerned with our city and the budgets that we are working with. Okay, and
Good point.
we need like a transition plan. You know, I know that they've already said it was at the last city council meeting. They're not interested in being part of the city-owned fire department. Well, okay. I think that as responsible stewards, I think that we need to be able to supply the information. I think that doing the feasibility plan that I was talking about and having the opportunity for the citizens to actually hear like what we actually really need and what will work for our city with our population, with our budget, all these different things, and let them like see from like based on the information that's collected, you know, from the committee and the person who's going to be presenting all that. We already have interest right now to do this case study, which on Florida, we haven't done any advertising on it. So that's great. So I think that getting the right information from people who not only were willing to do it, but also who have the experience in doing these types of things, these types of case studies, and having it before citizens so that they can see what the type of plan, what it actually would look like. Because I can tell you right now, you know, this thing that was presented to us back in June, what this was is basically, it's just a forecast. And the one thing that just sticks out here is like new station, there's medical insurance, $75,000. New station, $1.5 million. Replace 1995 fire engine, $300,000. This is under the 2018 budget. And then we go to our last page. Excuse me, the second to last page is in 2018, we have the total funding required was $429, county funding $67.5, city funding requested $362,000, and then additional funding required $1.8 million, okay, which equates to $1.5 million for a new fire station. You know, there's no transition plan. I mean, it's just little notes. Okay, and if they have like shared this forecast and all these different things that has been happening year by year and all that, how we were gonna sit there and pass $1.5 million fire station in 2018? That would have had to been a bond. And then the crazy thought happened about what happened, how the city hall came about, and I saw all the commentary. Again, I mentioned that in the feasibility study, the commentary that was made from citizens that were so upset because they didn't know about it and that all this stuff happened. So that just concerns me, is like, okay, so, you know, were they just expecting us to just, you know, within the next couple of years to you know, bust out with a 1.5 million fire station without letting anybody know about it? That's kind of how I felt, or how I read it. So I think that we need to go back. we need to really, really think about what we're doing here, because the cycle is not stopping. It's the same thing every year. I mean, remember the fear-mongering during the tax rollback? I haven't forgotten it. If you vote for that tax rollback, the fire department's not going to be receiving funds in January 2017. They even noted it here. They got paid in full for an entire year. Service companies. The service companies that I have for residential services, they get paid by the month or the quarter. That's a lot of money. Anyway, so one of the questions I asked Chief Jones and Herman Larkin is, like, you know, I asked him, like, you know, what are the funding options, and one of them, I think it was, they said they were considering like a city contract. It's not in there. And no, it's not. He mentioned it was $92,000, $92,849. Okay, that's for volunteer only. And it says 0 staffing, but again, I brought all this stuff to your attention is because these are some things that, you know, what are our best options? I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable that we don't have the assets explained. A couple of days ago, I went ahead and did an open records request for the grants, because that was also mentioned. You know, that some grants paid for some of the equipment. And so I would like to find out a little bit more about that. So I did an open record request, and I'm going to be able to give good feedback to the citizens that asked of me to give them answers, and so I'm going to do that. And as far as like the numbers are concerned, I don't know what that number is, but based on what I'm seeing so far, based on what other cities are doing, and what I've gathered from conversations, is that there's reasons why they go into a city-owned fire department versus contracting out their services. And that's why another thing too that's mentioned in the law, like, you know, why you're wanting to contract with other municipalities that have city-owned equipment, city-owned fire department. So anyway, those are some things that is weighing on me for consideration, and I hope that this was beneficial to you guys as well. I mean, I loved what you presented, and I hope that it's helpful in our decision making, and if we do consider creating a contract together, then hope that you consider the things I mentioned.
Mr. Herron.
Ms. Balcom, the only thing I wanted to, you said, made a comment about cities being able to contract with other cities for mutual fire protection. So that was in some of the research that you did?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could send me some of that information. A question came up tonight about the ability to be able to do that should our fire department choose not to extend those services. You know, that means that we possibly could go to Rockwall and sign a contract with Rockwall to provide fire services for us.
Rockwall will not do it.
If we didn't have a fire service, I mean, and there's also...
We have mutual aid with them. And there's other people that are listed in the mutual aid agreement too, so we can talk to them, and as well as the county. The county can talk to, if you know, like county, and then there's us. So if they have the same situation, the county can talk to any city to supply services.
Okay, yeah, just send me what you have, and I'll ask Mr. Pascal to do some research. If it's not legally against the law to do that, then we could go back.
I don't think it's illegal. I just know that Rockwall has said that they will not. Other cities around, I don't know.
Yeah, that's something we can look into.
Yeah.
And the reason, and I did want to note, I'm sorry, just real quick, I do want to note, because I'm sure there's confusion, at the last city council meeting, in addition to the fire leadership of the fire department being unwilling to sit down and negotiate at a table with the three of us, at the last city council meeting, Chief Jones refused to, will only negotiate through written exchanges. And so this is why, number one, we did not post an update on our response to their contract, because by law we can't. So we are acting in good faith based on the law, and our hands are tied because the fire chief, who has said he does not have the authority to speak on behalf of the fire department, that it's the members who make the decision, and since he doesn't have the power or authority, then there's no reason for, and he will not sit down and negotiate, then there's no reason for him to come and speak, because he can't speak on behalf of the fire department. So that's not our decision. We have asked them to sit down. We have made every effort to work toward negotiation, and we have been thwarted at every pass. So, Mayor Orchard.
Yeah. Two items. One, I'll piggyback on that, is that, yes, a response has not gone back based off of their contract, because we can't do that behind closed doors. Mr. Turnbull and myself, when the contract was presented to us, we had sat down, we talked, just because we've kind of been in the forefront there. But I can't then go and talk to Adrian and go, hey, Adrian, what do you think about this? Because that's illegal, based off the Texas Meetings Act, Opens Meeting Act. That's a walking quorum. So I can't go here, and so that's why we have to have this, and that's why there has not been an official response back. They will receive one by Thursday, end of business. And so the answer to your question about assets, 100% is owned by the MCVFD. No ifs, ands, or buts.
You know, I need to correct myself about that, because the question is, that was being asked is like, there was a Jaws of Life, for example, and they had the impression that they were raising money towards that item to be an asset, and, you know, as we know, that we don't have that as an asset under city-owned.
I'm not sure who was it doing the fundraising or the funding
And again, I don't know.
of that, but
Springfest or something.
Yeah.
but anything that was done, that if money was given to them, and that will be, addressed in, contracts and future, contracts, is, what, if assets are there, how it is. But I just want to make sure you had the answer there, is that every single piece of asset, whether it's grant or otherwise, is under MCVFD's responsibility.
So I know you want to, we were talking, we may want to go into an executive session. You have a question for the attorney. So we have not brought the attorney in. We've got him, we will have him on the phone if we go into executive session. But before we do, Councilmember Woodham, do you want to say anything, just
well,
as we move forward?
I'll be quick. Once again, I just want to state that, and I believe I can speak for everybody here, I can certainly speak for myself, that we do like and want the fire department. Now, there's some hostility there, but I'm of the opinion that conflict is good. Good things can come about from conflict. So I want y'all to kind of remember that as we go through this. I have all the confidence in the world that a contract is going to get done. It's not unusual for it to go to the wire. That's usually how things work out. But I think way too long, people were just concerned and upset about making the other person mad, or it was pretty much, you want that? Okay, let's roll and make everybody happy. Well, I think the city has reached a point where we're at a crossroads and we're making tough decisions. This is not easy for any of us, I can promise you that. But I think it's okay. Once again, I believe in my heart that conflict can result in something better. So remember that as we go forward, because we're doing everything in our power to make this work for everybody. We don't want to leave people out. We don't want people upset. We don't want people feeling that they don't have a fire department or help if they need it. There's a couple of things I want to ask real quick. Probably the Heron over there, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can answer it also. It's kind of to clear things up that are some people that have kind of tuning into this a little bit late, some of the citizens that have kind of piqued an interest and started paying attention. And I wanted to let you know that a lot of people have spoken to me, but they don't necessarily come to these meetings, and they don't necessarily get involved in social media because they can see some hostility there, and they don't want to get involved with that, but they have their own opinions, and some of them, and they vary. So let me clear up one thing for some of the people that I've spoken to. We're in a fire district, correct? There's the city, and then there's the outside the city, correct?
Yes.
The city portion of the fire district, is it bigger or smaller?
Smaller.
Smaller.
It's a third.
Than the outside.
It's a third of the outside, yes. The
Okay.
size.
The population, and I don't want to get all technical about percentages or anything like that. Are more people or houses in the city or outside the city?
Outside, but let's just call it equal for sake of argument.
Okay. Okay, and this is kind of where I have my problem, and I said it from the beginning. If all that is true, and we can all agree on that basic principle, it seems like we're paying an exorbitant amount compared to the county, and I can't get it through my head why the county gets away with that because this contract that I looked at says specifically inside the city. So if we're doing inside the city and the city's smaller with, let's say, equal people, why are we so much more than the county? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And that's just the beginning, because I think as we go through this, this has been going on for so long, and we're finally we're asking some tough questions, and we need to get them resolved, because this can't go on forever. I mean, at some point we're going to hit a critical mass, and I'm not the kind of person that wants to kick the can down the road. I'm the kind of person that says we identified a problem. Let's work for a solution to this problem so we're not doing the exact same thing next year at this time. Let's come to some sort of resolution and some sort of schedule that makes sense. That's all I'm asking for, is for something that makes sense for everyone. That's it. Looking at this and looking at the past, it to me appears to be a completely one-sided contract. And that's not in the city's favor. And I'm not saying the fire department aren't great guys, because they are, and they do a great job. But all I'm asking is, man, you've been given a sweetheart of a deal for a long time. All we're asking, and I don't think it's unreasonable, is come to the table and let's work this out. Let's hammer it out. That's basically all that I can say at the moment, because I'm trying to clear things up for some other people and trying to wrap my head around it at the same time of why the cost is so much. And both Heron and Adrian made valid points, and this thing is deep. It's got tentacles. And we're not probably, I'll try to be optimistic, going to have it perfect this year. But it's a start. because there's a lot of things that we got to sort out. I mean, like she said, we're undoing this onion, and every time we're unpeeling it, there's something else. But we need a starting point, and I think we're heading in that direction. So just remember, let's kind of keep the personal attacks to a minimum. And there's enough blame to go around for everyone, including myself, so I'm not immune to it, and I'm not saying I'm perfect by any stretch, but let's do our best to take the emotion out of it and deal with the actual facts. Because that's the other problem with having a contractor of a fire department, because the fire department it's inherently an emotional deal. I mean, you're talking about lives, property, houses, pets, and it's not like a freaking car or a trash can that you're negotiating. People get emotional, and understandably so. But let's just, on both sides, let's try to do our best to find that happy medium so we can at least communicate. That's the first step. Now I'll step off my
One more
soapbox.
thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, where's Butler? Did he leave already? Yep. All right. So Thursday, this is just a reminder if you've already forgotten, is that we have a webinar. Not all of us are going to be there, obviously, but Dave said that we can be able to receive a CD from the webinar that's going to take place on Thursday, and it's it's about asking questions to a fire chief, the things that or is important information that you would interview with the fire chief. So I just want to remind you guys about that.
I want to point, I need to make a point as we talk about this as well, because Mr. Woodham, you focused and asked a question concerning our area and fire district. I want to just show, this is basically, this is our ETJ, or it was. This portion right here was in our ETJ. This is the 4,000 acres that we gave to Rockwall. Right here, this is Chisholm Ranch, and this is High Point Lake Estates. Now, what? High Point Ranch, sorry, what did I say, Chisholm Ranch? Yeah. Sorry, that's High Point Ranch, thank you very much. High Point Ranch, High Point Lake Estates, good? All right, Rockwall is about to hit the magic number of 50,000 in population. I believe it's going to come within the next 2 years. I think that's what happened. Okay. I just want to remind people about some of the things. People are asking, well, what did we get for 4,000 acres? And this has everything to do with the fire district, so bear with me. What did we get for it? Well, let's remember they were going to be putting apartment complexes and townhomes right here, and we had absolutely zero control over what could be put in there. In fact, this portion right here, which is what's known as the Koch property, the Koch property, that piece of acreage right there, that's one of 4 plats. We had the former mayor of McLendon-Chisholm, Gary Moody, stand up and say, well, you know, these people are good to work with. You can negotiate with them. Everybody was telling us, don't give it away, because you can negotiate. You can work with these developers. This is the file of when this property, known as the Koch property, that's the owners. The Koch is the owners. They own that property, and they wanted to put a water district in, and so the city met with them for months, and this is all the legal back and forth of that exchange to negotiate terms. Remember, the city has no control, no say in what goes on there. After all the months of negotiation, you know, we got absolutely nothing, because the Koch people basically said, you know what, this is a waste of our time, we don't have to work with you, we're not going to. And they got the water district, they put exactly what they wanted to put in there. Despite all of the people claiming, oh, you can work with people. Another thing that occurred a year and a half ago is the state Supreme Court changed something significant.
which makes it an additional problem for us. And that is, in your ETJ, what you used to be able to do as a city is require those in the ETJ. Remember, see that shadow area, that is ETJ. Everything outside the ETJ is not. So, or that's not in the shadow, is outside of it. If you were inside the ETJ, the city could require that you adhere to their building standards, which means if you're in the ETJ, you would have to get permits from the city and you would have to adhere to their building standard. Councilman Herron talked about the fact that houses are safer inside the city than outside the city, and this is the reason why, because they have to adhere to our higher standard of building than they do in the outside of the city. But in the ETJ, it used to be they would have to adhere to our standards. Well, State Supreme Court knocked that down a year and a half ago, which means that we didn't have even any control over what happens from a safety or ordinance standard as well. So the apartment complex or whatever they wanted to put in there, they could do whatever they wanted. So we gave that away, and just as Mayor Pruitt and I were meeting a few weeks ago, and he goes, by the way, we stopped, they wanted to put a mud in, and a mud, I didn't realize how big of a deal a mud is. But when I was at the Texas Municipal League conference a few months ago, I didn't talk to one mayor, one member of the city council. They even had symposiums on how to avoid a mud, because they are literally a Wild West. They can do whatever they want. They don't have the same restrictions that a city does. And if you hate a PID, that ain't nothing compared to a mud, because unlike a PID, a mud can tax you forever and ever. With a PID, you pay off your lot, and that's done, and you only pay the maintenance portion. So they were going, okay, just hear me out. If we had kept that in our ETJ, guess what would be in there right now? A mud. And we could have done nothing about it. So what did we get for it? We saved the people of McLendon-Chisholm and those in Rockwall, frankly, from an imminent disaster of having a mud district in there. Is there going to be high-density development in there? I believe that there is. But what we've done is we've got concessions from Rockwall to kind of have some green space and some buffer between the Sonoma Verde, this Edwards Road, and whatever's developed there. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is, one of the things that we had talked about was putting a what's called a halo around the edge of that property, like a 15-foot halo that would be McLendon-Chisholm ETJ. What that would have done was prevent Rockwall, because it is a home rule city, it has the power to involuntarily annex anything in their ETJ. When Rockwall annexes this property, which they are going to be annexing this property, what happens is whenever a city annexes, automatically a halo comes out from the boundaries of that city, which is why you see what you see around McLendon-Chisholm. We have, I think, a 1 mile or half mile around our city automatically. From that's how it works. When Rockwall hits the magic 50,000 mark, they're at 5 miles. Their halo goes to 5 miles. Is that correct? Is it 5?
I'm not sure.
I think it's 5. 5 miles. I'm almost positive of that. Huh? Right now it's 1 mile. Once they hit that 5 miles, and watch what happens here. Okay, so this all becomes Rockwall, city of Rockwall. What happens here? That's all in the ETJ. High Point Ranch, High Point Lake Estates. Every bit of it is in the Rockwall ETJ. Now, those of you who are in that, y'all are in that area, correct? Anyone else in that area? Okay. All right, so should that scare you? Well, maybe. The reason we didn't put a halo there is because when Mayor Pruitt and I were negotiating this, we talked about the halo, but he said, look, and I agree, we kind of came into this conclusion together. If when they hit the 50,000 mark, that becomes Rockwall ETJ. Rockwall can give that ETJ to McLendon-Chisholm.
It's 3.5 miles.
3.5 miles. Okay, thank you. We were able to see that you're going to get all of High Point Range. I'm almost sure we estimate that yeah, it would cover it all. That's right. Okay, so thank you very much. 3 miles. So that is an option, unless those in the unincorporated area don't want to be a part of McLendon-Chisholm, and they just want to they want to be a part of Rockwall, and Rockwall can then take them over. So there's options. What we've done is we've created a situation where there are options. Now, because, and this is getting a little bit in the sticks, but it's important to think about it this way. 2 years from now, we're going to have another legislative session. This legislative session, they came very close to restricting cities from involuntarily annexing properties in their ETJ. What came out of it is, I believe it's cities that have 1 million, or 500,000, that's right, 500,000 or more, Houston, Dallas, they can no longer involuntarily annex those in their ETJ. Cities like Rockwall still can, but we already know that that's going to be on the next docket. It was a special session item. I'll tell you, that's how big of a deal it was. It was a special session item. The governor put it in that. It still failed, but narrowly. They believe that in 2 years, that's probably going to be back on the docket, and it could very well pass, which means that in 2 years, when Rockwall hits that magic number, things are going to happen quickly. And those in the unincorporated area have got to decide, do you want to be a part of McLendon-Chisholm or Rockwall? Are you going to voluntarily annex into McLendon-Chisholm if Rockwall gives over that portion of their ETJ? If not, Rockwall's going to hold on to that, and you guys live free and happy in Rockwall. That's kind of the deal. The burden for Rockwall is they are going to have to establish a fire department and services out here, which means they've got to be able to fund it. You kind of see where we're going with that. So that's why Mayor Pruitt he was like, you know, this area right here, that's really more like McLendon-Chisholm, and it would be a good complement to the city. But honestly, what we're hearing from the people outside of the city, the shrill people came and just berated us and from outside. We were kind of taken aback by it. So I keep saying we want to work with people, but we keep getting just pounded.
Well, hang on.
Go ahead.
Remember we went to the HOA meeting for High Point Ranch. I didn't feel that way.
You're right. No, I'm talking about hearing the people who come out to these things. We're hearing from, it's probably the vocal minority, just like it is here in the city. The vocal minority who just makes a big brouhaha. And I mean, I don't know, I get so many calls and emails from people who go, listen, we're not listening to those people. We think they're crazy. You guys keep doing what you're doing. So that's why we keep our wits about us. But I'm just giving everybody in this area, in these neighborhoods, the opportunity to start saying, wait a minute, all the people who are posting this nonsense, you don't speak for me, stop talking for me. City Council, McLendon-Chisholm, hey, we want to work with you. We'd love to hear that. We'd love for you guys to talk to us, because we are open to that. But that's, again, things can happen in the next election, and this is not my life. So if I'm not here next year, it will not be a burden to me in the least bit. A few of us were kind of talking about that, but we believe that we speak for the majority of the people. All right. So, Mayor Orchard, do you want to confer with the attorney on these issues? Okay. So let me just highlight in the agenda. This is on the last page, page 3, as authorized by Section 551071 of the Texas Government Code. This meeting may be convened into closed executive session in order to seek confidential legal advice from city attorney on any agenda item herein. We are going to have an executive session on on item 8. And we will recess for executive session.